The downtown cafe glowed softly under string lights, casting gentle shadows across tables dressed in cream-colored linens. Natalie Brooks smoothed her hands over her borrowed emerald dress, feeling like an imposter in a world that wasn't hers. At 32, she was more comfortable in hospital scrubs than cocktail attire, more at ease reading bedtime stories to her daughter. Emma, then navigating the glittering social scene her sister inhabited, but Vanessa had insisted. Her twin sister, identical in appearance, yet entirely different in spirit, had promised this would be good for her. "You deserve one night to yourself," Vanessa had said, her perfectly manicured hands adjusting Natalie's necklace. "There's someone I want you to meet. Someone special." Natalie hadn't wanted to come. Between her shifts at Riverside Children's Hospital and caring for 7-year-old Emma, she barely had time to sleep, let alone date. Her ex-husband Robert had left them 2 years ago, unable to handle the pressure of parenthood and marriage. Since then, Natalie had built a quiet life focused entirely on her daughter and her young patients. But something in Vanessa's eyes seemed almost genuine, almost sisterly, so Natalie had agreed. Now, sitting alone at a corner table while curious glances swept over her, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Across the restaurant, Vanessa sat with 3 of her high society friends, all designer handbags and practiced smiles. Their eyes kept darting toward Natalie, and she caught the unmistakable glint of a phone camera pointed in her direction. Her stomach twisted. With the first whispers of dread, then he arrived. Julian Cross moved through the restaurant like a storm front, silent but impossible to ignore. At 38, he was known throughout the city not for his wealth, though he had billions, but for his intensity. Cross Technologies had revolutionized medical imaging software, saving countless lives. But Julian himself remained an enigma, rarely seen in public since his wife, Catherine, had died in a hiking accident. 3 years prior, he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Natalie's monthly rent. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples, and his blue eyes were sharp, analytical, as if he was constantly solving equations in his head. When he sat down across from her, the temperature at the table seemed to drop several degrees. "Do you know who I am?" His voice was quiet, controlled, but the question hit like a challenge. Natalie blinked, her heart hammering. Behind her, she heard Vanessa's friends giggle, the sound cruel and knowing. Her sister's phone was definitely recording now. "Should one?" Natalie managed, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. Julian's jaw tightened. He didn't smile. Most people do. The realization crashed over her like cold water. This wasn't a date. This was a setup. A joke at her expense. Vanessa hadn't arranged this out of sisterly love. She'd arranged it to humiliate her. To prove once and for all that Natalie didn't belong in this world of power and prestige. Natalie's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. She should leave. She should walk out with whatever dignity she had left. But then she thought of Emma, who had helped her pick out earrings earlier, who had kissed her cheek and whispered, "You look like a princess." "Mommy?" She wouldn't give Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her run. "I work with children," Natalie said quietly, lifting her chin. "At the hospital. I don't have much time for celebrity news." Something flickered in Julian's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or reassessment. Before he could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Natalie's heart nearly stopped when she saw Emma walking in, holding the hand of Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Chen called out, looking flustered. "My daughter got sick. I couldn't keep Emma after all. I thought you'd want her nearby." At the same moment, a hostess was seating a small boy at a table near the window. He was slight, with Julian's dark hair and Catherine's delicate features. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded, his expression blank. Julian had gone rigid. "Oliver," he murmured, standing abruptly. The nanny canceled. "I brought him along." Emma, energetic and curious as always, spotted the quiet boy immediately. Before Natalie could stop her, she'd bounded over to his table. "Hi, I'm Emma. Do you want to be friends?" Oliver didn't respond. He didn't even look at her. His eyes remained fixed on the table in front of him. Emma, undeterred, tried again. I like your shirt. Is that a rocket ship? Still nothing. Natalie rose quickly, apologizing to Julian as she moved toward the children. But something made her pause. Oliver's shoulders were tense, his small hands gripping the edge of the table. He wasn't being rude. He was struggling. She'd seen this before in some of her young patients. The kind of silence that came from pain too deep for words. Gently, Natalie knelt beside the table. She didn't speak to Oliver directly, knowing that might overwhelm him. Instead, she reached for a paper napkin and began to fold it with practiced hands. Emma watched, fascinated, as her mother's fingers created delicate creases and curves. Within moments, a paper flower bloomed in Natalie's palm. She set it carefully on the table between the two children. This flower, she said softly, is called a hope blossom. It grows in the quietest gardens, where sometimes words can't reach. But it always knows who needs it most. Emma picked it up reverently. It's beautiful, Mom. For the first time, Oliver's eyes moved. He looked at the flower, then at Natalie's hands, then slowly, cautiously, at her face, and then, so faintly that Natalie almost missed it. The corners of his mouth lifted. A smile, tiny, fragile, but unmistakably real. Julian had moved to stand behind his son's chair, and when Natalie glanced up, she saw his expression had completely transformed. The cold, analytical CEO had vanished. In his place stood a father who looked like he'd just witnessed a miracle. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. He hasn't smiled, Julian whispered, his voice breaking, in 3 years. Not since Catherine died. Natalie's throat constricted. She understood loss. She understood the weight of trying to heal what seemed irreparably broken. Emma, oblivious to the emotional earthquake happening around her, pulled another napkin toward her. Can you teach me, Mom? I want to make one for Oliver, too. As Natalie guided her daughter's small fingers through the folds, Oliver watched intently. And when Emma triumphantly held up her slightly lopsided creation, he reached out and took it. He held it like it was made of glass. The restaurant had gone quiet. Even Vanessa's table had fallen silent, the mocking laughter dying in their throats. This wasn't supposed to happen. Natalie was supposed to fail, to embarrass herself, to prove she didn't belong. Instead, she'd done something none of them could have predicted. She'd reached a child that teams of expensive therapists couldn't reach. Julian sank into the chair beside his son, his hand resting gently on Oliver's shoulder. He looked at Natalie with something that might have been wonder or gratitude, or something far more complicated. How did you... He started. Then stopped, unable to finish the question. Natalie shook her head. I just tried something small. Sometimes that's all children need. Someone to meet them where they are. Emma had already pulled her chair over to sit beside Oliver, chattering about her favorite cartoons and asking if he liked dinosaurs or space better. And though Oliver didn't answer, he listened. Really listened. His eyes followed Emma's animated gestures, and twice, that small smile returned. Across the restaurant, Vanessa's face had gone pale. Her perfectly laid trap had not only failed, it had backfired spectacularly. The footage on her phone no longer showed her sister's humiliation. It showed something that would make Natalie look kind, compassionate, remarkable. Everything Vanessa had tried to prove she wasn't. Julian's gaze never left Natalie's face. For the first time in years, he felt something crack in the armor he'd built around himself. This woman, who, his research team would later tell him, worked double shifts to support her daughter, who volunteered at the children's hospital on weekends, who had herself survived the devastating loss of her younger brother to leukemia years ago, had given him something priceless. Hope, would you stay? He asked quietly. For dinner. Both of you? Natalie glanced at Emma, who was now showing Oliver how to make shadow puppets with her hands. Her daughter's joy was contagious, and even Oliver seemed captivated. Yes, Natalie said softly. We'll stay. As the waiter approached, and Julian ordered for them all, Vanessa gathered her things and left with her friends, unable to watch anymore. The evening she designed to destroy her sister had instead become the beginning of something she could never have anticipated, and neither could Natalie. 3 days after the restaurant, Natalie stood in the pediatric ward, checking charts and talking softly to a young patient about her favorite storybook. When the head nurse appeared at her elbow looking flustered, "There's someone here to see you," she whispered. "In the conference room." He said, "It's urgent." Natalie frowned. "Who?" "Julian Cross." Her heart stuttered. She smoothed her scrubs automatically, suddenly self-conscious. "Did he say what he wants?" "Just that he needs to speak with you. Privately." Natalie handed off her clipboard and made her way to the small conference room, her mind racing. She hadn't expected to see him again. That night at the restaurant had been a strange, isolated moment, nothing more. She'd gone home, tucked Emma into bed, and tried to convince herself it meant nothing. But she hadn't stopped thinking about Oliver's smile. Julian stood when she entered, looking oddly out of place among the motivational posters and donation thank you plaques. He wore dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt, more casual than before, but still carrying that aura of intensity. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "Is Oliver okay?" The question came out before she could stop it. Something softened in Julian's expression. "He's better. He smiled twice yesterday. Once, when his therapist mentioned paper flowers, and once when I told him he might see Emma again." Natalie's chest tightened. "That's wonderful. It's because of you." Julian took a step closer. "Dr. Patricia Monroe, his lead therapist, has been working with him for 2 years. She's one of the best in the country. And in one evening, you did what she couldn't." "I didn't do anything," Natalie protested. "I just folded a napkin. You did more than that." His blue eyes were intent on her face. "You saw him. Really saw him? Not as a problem to fix or a case to solve. As a child who needed someone to meet him in his silence." Natalie looked down at her hands, uncomfortable with the praise. "I work with children every day. It's my job to see them. It's more than your job." Julian pulled a folder from his bag and set it on the table. "I have a proposition." Her stomach twisted. "Mr. Cross, Julian, please." "Julian, I'm not a therapist. I can't help Oliver the way you need. You already have." He opened the folder, revealing architectural plans. "This hospital needs a new pediatric wing. I've reviewed your funding requests. They've been denied for 3 years. Natalie stared at the blueprints, her breath catching. She'd fought so hard for that wing, written countless grant proposals, begged the board. "How did I make it my business to know things?" He met her eyes. "I'll fund the entire project. $10 million. In exchange, I want you to spend time with Oliver. Not as his therapist, just ... as yourself. The way you were that night. You're trying to buy my time. I'm trying to save my son." The raw honesty in his voice stopped her protest. "I've tried everything else. Every expert, every treatment. I'm not asking you to fix him. I'm asking you to be around him. To let Emma be around him? Children heal each other in ways adults can't." Natalie's hands trembled slightly. "I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't." "Why not?" The question hung between them. She could have given him a dozen practical reasons. Her schedule, her daughter, the impropriety of it. But the truth was darker, heavier. "Because I failed before," she whispered. "My brother Danny. He was 9 when he was diagnosed with leukemia. I was in nursing school. I thought. I was so sure I could help him. I studied constantly, learned everything about his treatment. I was at the hospital every day." Her voice cracked. "And he died anyway. In my arms. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't save him." Julian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes deepened with understanding. After that, Natalie continued. "I promised myself I would never take responsibility for someone else's healing again. I work with patients. I care for them, but I don't. I can't let myself believe I'm the key to their survival. Because when I fail again, it will destroy me." "You won't fail, Oliver," Julian said quietly. "You don't know that?" "No. But I know that doing nothing is also a choice. And right now, doing nothing means watching my son disappear further into silence every day." He paused. "I'm not asking you to save him. I'm asking you to give him a chance at joy. That's all. Just joy. Natalie closed her eyes. She thought of Emma, who'd talked about Oliver nonstop since that night, who'd made 3 more paper flowers and asked every day when they could see the quiet boy again. One afternoon, she heard herself say, "One playdate. That's all I can promise." Relief flooded Julian's face. "That's all I'm asking. And the hospital wing is happening regardless. I don't trade children's futures for favors." Despite everything, Natalie felt a small smile tug at her lips. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither wanted to name. Vanessa had other ideas. While Natalie was navigating her complicated feelings about Julian and Oliver, her sister was orchestrating her next move. The restaurant humiliation hadn't worked. Fine, she'd try something else. She started with whispers. At charity galas and society brunches, she mentioned how her poor, desperate sister was clearly trying to trap the billionaire widower. How Natalie had manipulated the situation with the children. How she was probably already planning her wedding to Julian's fortune. The rumors spread like wildfire through the social circles Vanessa inhabited. And though Julian's world and Natalie's rarely overlapped, gossip had a way of bridging any divide. Meanwhile, the playdate was arranged for the following Saturday at a neutral location, the City Botanical Gardens. Emma bounced with excitement all week, making Natalie promise 3 times that Oliver would definitely be there. When Saturday arrived, Natalie's nerves were frayed. She'd barely slept, plagued by dreams of Danny's hospital room, of failing another child, of Oliver's silence becoming permanent because she couldn't reach him again. But Emma's enthusiasm was infectious, and by the time they arrived at the gardens, Natalie felt a cautious hope stirring. Julian and Oliver were waiting by the fountain. Oliver wore a blue sweater and held a small sketchbook. When he saw Emma, his eyes lit up with unmistakable recognition. Emma ran to him immediately, talking a mile a minute about the flowers they'd see and the koi pond, and did he know that butterflies could taste with their feet? Oliver didn't respond verbally, but he listened. And when Emma offered him her hand, he took it. Julian watched them walk ahead toward the rose garden, his throat tight with emotion. "He never holds hands," he murmured to Natalie. "Catherine used to try, but after she died, he pulled away from everyone." Natalie watched the children, her heart aching with their simple, pure connection. Emma lost someone too. She doesn't remember her Uncle Danny well, but she remembers the hospital, the sadness. I think she recognizes loneliness in others because she felt it herself. They followed the children in comfortable silence, keeping a respectful distance. Oliver and Emma stopped at every flower, every butterfly. Emma narrated the entire experience, and Oliver listened, occasionally pointing at things that caught his attention. Then, at the butterfly pavilion, something remarkable happened. A monarch butterfly landed on Oliver's outstretched finger. Emma gasped in delight, and Oliver's face transformed with wonder. He looked at the butterfly, then at Emma, and his mouth opened. "Pretty," he whispered. The single word was so soft that Natalie almost thought she'd imagined it. But Julian had frozen beside her, his hand gripping the railing so hard his knuckles were white. Emma heard it too. "Yes, it is pretty. You talked, Oliver. You talked." Oliver looked startled by his own voice, and for a moment, Natalie feared he'd retreat back into silence. But Emma's joy was so genuine, so uncomplicated, that instead of fear, Oliver smiled, a real, full smile. Julian made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Natalie found her own eyes burning with tears. "It's just one word," she whispered, hardly daring to hope. "It's the first word in 3 years," Julian said, his voice shaking. "It's everything." The afternoon continued in a blur of small miracles. Oliver spoke twice more, once to say butterfly and once to ask more. When Emma suggested they visit the koi pond, each word was a gift, and Julian catalogued every one. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Oliver goodbye. "Can we come back next week?" she asked her mother hopefully. Natalie looked at Julian. His expression was raw, grateful, almost desperate. "Yes," she agreed softly. "We can come back." As they parted ways, Oliver turned back once, lifting his hand in a small wave. Emma waved frantically in return. In the car ride home, Emma fell asleep, clutching a pressed flower from the gardens. Natalie drove in silence, her mind churning with emotions she couldn't name. She'd promised herself she wouldn't take responsibility for another person's healing. But watching Oliver speak, watching the light return to Julian's eyes, she felt the walls she'd built starting to crumble, and it terrified her almost as much as it gave her hope. Vanessa's fury had reached a boiling point. Every carefully crafted rumor she'd spread seemed to backfire. Instead of turning society against Natalie, people were curious about the mysterious womanhood captured Julian Cross's attention. Articles appeared in gossip columns, speculating about the reclusive billionaires. New romance, it made Vanessa sick. She needed something bigger. Something that would destroy her sister's budding relationship with Julian once and for all. And she knew exactly what would work. Make it look like Natalie was a gold digger. Just like everyone whispered, Vanessa had connections in the digital world, people who owed her favors. Within a week, she had what she needed. Doctored bank statements showing recent large deposits into Natalie's account. Photoshop screenshots of text messages between Natalie and a friend discussing landing the billionaire. And even a fake social media post about designer shopping sprees. The evidence was devastating and completely false. Vanessa packaged it all in an anonymous email and sent it to Julian's personal assistant, knowing it would reach him within hours. Meanwhile, Natalie was oblivious to the storm gathering. She and Emma had seen Julian and Oliver 3 more times over the past 2 weeks. Each visit brought small breakthroughs. Oliver was speaking more simple words, hesitant sentences, but speech nonetheless. He'd started drawing pictures for Emma, intricate sketches that showed a talent inherited from his late mother. Julian had been ... different, softer. He'd started arriving early to their meetings, lingering afterward. He'd asked Natalie about her work, her childhood, her dreams for the future, and she'd found herself answering honestly. Something she rarely did with anyone outside her small circle of close friends. The annual spring festival at Emma's school was approaching, and Oliver's school was partnering for a joint event. Emma had been practicing her part in the talent show for weeks, a puppet performance she'd created herself about 2 unlikely friends who helped each other be brave. Natalie knew the story was inspired by Oliver. Julian had offered to attend with Oliver, and Natalie had felt a warmth spread through her chest at the thought of them sitting together, watching their children perform like a family. That dream shattered the morning of the festival. Julian arrived at the school grounds early, his expression carved from stone. When he found Natalie setting up chairs with other parents, his eyes were cold again, the warmth of recent weeks completely gone. "We need to talk," he said curtly. "Privately." Natalie's stomach dropped. "What's wrong? Is Oliver's fine?" He gestured toward the empty auditorium. "In there?" She followed him, her mind racing through possibilities. Had she done something wrong? Said something inappropriate? Her hands twisted together nervously as Julian closed the door behind them. He pulled out his phone, opened an email, and turned the screen toward her. "Explain this." Natalie's eyes scanned the contents, her confusion growing with each line. Bank statements, text messages, shopping receipts, all with her name attached. I don't understand. What is this?" "Evidence," Julian said, his voice hard, "that you've been planning this from the beginning. Using Oliver to get close to me, to my money." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "That's not true. Julian, none of this is real. I've never seen these bank statements. These text messages aren't mine. They're from your phone number. Then someone faked them." Her voice rose with desperation. "I would never. You know me better than this. Do I?" The question was bitter. "I've known you for 3 weeks, Natalie." 3 weeks. And in that time, you've become indispensable to my son. Convenient, isn't it? Tears burned her eyes. "You think I would use a traumatized child for money? You think that's who I am?" I think people are capable of extraordinary deception when enough money's involved. But even as he said it, doubt flickered across his face. I don't want your money, Natalie said, her voice breaking. I never did. I wanted to help Oliver because he reminded me of every child I couldn't save. Because Emma loves him. Because watching him smile again felt like maybe, finally. I wasn't completely broken after losing Danny. Julian's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. If you believe this, Natalie continued, gesturing at the phone, then you never knew me at all. She turned and walked out, before he could see her completely fall apart. Emma found her mother crying in the bathroom 20 minutes later. Mommy, why are you sad? Natalie tried to compose herself, but the tears wouldn't stop. I'm okay, sweetheart. Just a hard day. Is it because of Oliver's dad? Emma's intuition was too sharp. Did you have a fight? Something like that. Emma's face crumpled. But Oliver needs you. He talks now because of you. And you're happy when you're with them. I can tell. The simple truth from her 7-year-old daughter broke something in Natalie's chest. Sometimes people stop trusting each other, even when they shouldn't. Then we have to fix it. Emma grabbed her hand. Come on. The show's about to start. Oliver's watching. We can't let him down. Natalie let her daughter pull her back toward the auditorium, wiping her eyes and trying to hold herself together. She scanned the crowd and saw Julian sitting in the back row, Oliver beside him. The little boy was looking around anxiously, clearly searching for Emma. Emma spotted him and waved. Oliver's face lit up, and he waved back with both hands. The show began. Emma performed beautifully, her puppet characters a brave mouse and a quiet owl navigating challenges together. The other children laughed and applauded, but Natalie's eyes kept drifting to Oliver, who watched with rapt attention halfway through Emma's performance. Something went wrong. One of the older boys, showing off near the stage scaffolding, knocked over a support beam. It fell with a crash, lights shattering, and children screamed. Emma jumped back, startled and in her panic. Ran off stage, out the side door. Natalie was on her feet instantly, pushing through the crowd. But Emma had already disappeared into the school's back courtyard. Frightened and disoriented, and Oliver, seeing his friend scared, did something no one expected. He ran after her. Julian saw his son disappear through the door, and his heart stopped. Oliver. Both parents were running now, calling their children's names, fear overriding everything else, including their argument. They burst through the door into the courtyard, but it was empty. The gardens, Natalie gasped. Emma loves the gardens behind the school. They ran together, their earlier anger forgotten in the face of sheer panic. The garden was larger than it looked, with hedge mazes and hidden pathways designed for student projects. Emma, Natalie called. Oliver. Julian's voice cracked with fear. Then they heard it. A small voice, hesitant but clear. Don't cry, Emma. They followed the sound to a garden shed tucked behind the rose bushes. Through the window, they could see both children. Emma was crying, huddled against the wall. Oliver sat beside her, holding her hand. It's okay, Oliver said softly. The loud noise is gone. You're safe, Emma sniffled. I was so scared, I know, but you're brave. Like in your puppet show. The mouse was scared too, but the owl helped. I'm your owl. Natalie's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Julian stood frozen beside her, watching his son, his silent, traumatized son, comforting another child with words. Emma wiped her eyes. You're talking so much now. Because of you, Oliver said simply. You're my friend. Friends help each other be brave. Julian made a sound like all the air had left his lungs. Natalie reached for the door handle, but he caught her wrist gently. Wait, he whispered. Let them have this moment. I watched as Emma leaned her head on Oliver's shoulder, and Oliver, in a gesture that made both parents' hearts break and heal simultaneously, put his arm around her. I'm sorry I ran, Emma said. It's okay to be scared sometimes. My mom says that too. Your mom is really nice, Oliver said. My dad likes her. Emma perked up. Really? Yeah, he smiles different when she's around. Like he used to with my mom in the pictures. Julian's eyes closed, his throat working against emotion. Natalie touched his arm, and when he looked at her, his expression was devastated with regret. God, Natalie, I'm so sorry. We need to get them, she said gently, though her own heart was pounding. They opened the door carefully. Both children looked up, and Emma immediately ran to her mother while Oliver went to his father. I'm sorry I ran, Mommy. It's okay, baby. You're safe. That's all that matters. Julian knelt in front of Oliver, his hands shaking as he cupped his son's face. You spoke. So many words. I had to help Emma, Oliver said. She needed me. You were so brave. She makes me brave. As they walked back to the school, Julian fell into step beside Natalie. Those documents, they're fake, aren't they? Yes. I should have known immediately. Should have trusted what I saw in you rather than what someone wanted me to see. He paused. My security team is already tracing the email. We'll find out who sent it. They wouldn't have to look far. By Monday morning, Julian's head of security had tracked the fabricated evidence to a digital marketing firm Vanessa had worked with previously. The trail was sloppy, designed for quick damage rather than long-term deception. Phone records showed calls between Vanessa and the firm. Bank transactions revealed her payment for the services. She'd been careless in her desperation. Julian's response was swift and public. He released a statement through his company's PR team, denouncing the false allegations against Natalie and praising her work with children. He mentioned carefully the positive impact she'd had on his son's recovery. Vanessa's world imploded. Her employer put her on immediate leave pending investigation into her ethics violations. Her society friends, always quick to turn on weakness, distanced themselves. The carefully constructed image she'd built over years crumbled in days. She tried calling Natalie, leaving voicemails that ranged from defensive to pleading. Natalie deleted them all without listening. 6 months passed. Oliver was speaking in full sentences now, attending regular school and making friends. He still had moments of silence, still struggled with his grief. But Dr. Monroe reported that his progress was remarkable. Emma and Oliver were inseparable. They had weekly playdates, sat together at every school event, and called each other best friend with the absolute certainty only children possess. Natalie and Julian were ... something, not officially together, but not apart either. They had coffee twice a week while the children played. They shared quiet dinners after particularly hard days. They'd learned each other's wounds and fears, building trust slowly. Carefully, Julian had funded not only the hospital wing, but also a foundation in Danny's name for childhood cancer research. Natalie had been overwhelmed, crying in his arms the day he'd shown her the paperwork. He said, "You failed your brother," he'd murmured against her hair. "Let's make sure other families have a fighting chance." On a warm autumn afternoon, the four of them sat together in the botanical gardens where it had all begun. Emma and Oliver were sketching butterflies, their heads bent close together over a shared notebook. "Mom?" Oliver called suddenly. He'd started calling her Miss Natalie weeks ago, but recently had asked, shyly, if he could call her what Emma did. Natalie's heart still skipped when he used the word. "Yes, sweetheart. Emma says I can come to her house next weekend, and that we can make paper flowers together. Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay." Oliver smiled, then turned to his father. "Dad, if Emma's my best friend, does that mean someday she could be my sister?" Julian's eyes met Natalie's over the children's heads. The question hung in the air, enormous and terrifying and full of possibility. Emma looked up hopefully. Could I? Could I be Oliver's sister? Natalie felt Julian's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining. "Maybe someday," Natalie said softly, her eyes never leaving Julian's. "If that's what everyone wants, I want it," Emma announced. "Me too," Oliver agreed. Julian's thumb traced circles on Natalie's palm. "Seems we're outvoted. Seems so." The children went back to their drawings, already planning their future as siblings with the easy confidence of those who'd never learned to doubt love, and Natalie realized that sometimes the cruelest traps could become the most beautiful beginnings. That healing came not from perfection, but from showing up day after day. For the people who needed you, That family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was paper flowers and whispered words into children holding hands in a garden. Sometimes it was a blind date that started as a joke and became a miracle.